Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. UFC 294 takes place this Saturday. I could not be more excited. I will be doing my first ever live fight companion stream for this card because it is earlier in the day and that is perfect for my schedule. I am here to give my picks and preview every single fight on this card, okay? So we are going to start from the very first fight of the night, work our way up as per usual. I try to go through the earlier ones a little bit faster. Some of them I'll probably end up spending a bit of time on because this card is absolutely stacked. Top to bottom. Great fights on the early prelims, great fights on the prelims, and obviously that main card is just phenomenal. So let's get right to it. The very first fight of the night, Butin, Magomedov, the Bullet, long-awaited debut versus Bruno Silva. This guy's got a ton of hype on him. Obviously, I'm talking about the Bullet, okay? I gotta be honest, not totally sold on him yet. Just some of the competition he's been facing are not the best. Some of the records you see on his Tapology, in the competitor section are not great. Now, to be fair, he is doing exactly what you would want to see from a very good prospect, and that's getting the vast majority of his wins by finish, a lot of them early on to boot. I think he's got one official decision on his professional MMA record. Now, he does have a few modified rule set MMA fights. I'm not sure what that all entails. However, he's doing what you want to see, which is good, okay? And look, this guy's kickboxing is clearly good. Like, he's got a pro kickboxing fight on his record as well. He's very good. His kicks are phenomenal, but that, for me, might be what the problem is that it's the vast majority kicks, right? And when it's not necessarily a problem, but his hands seem to be lacking a little bit. He does have a good jab. His defense when it comes to boxing range is a little bit lacking. I was watching back some of his older fights, and you could see him get cracked with a few overhand rights. Bruno Silva can crack, man. And also, Bruno Silva's never been knocked out. Now, he's been hurt in fights before, like GM3 dropped him, yet somehow dude went 3 rounds with Alex Pereira and didn't get finished. But it is what it is, apparently. Okay, very inconsistent. His like kryptonite is submissions though, right? He's been submitted 7 times throughout his career, knocked out 0. So if Putin was one of these more grappling heavy Dagestani guys, I might, be inclined to pick him, but I'm honestly having a hard time picking him just because we haven't seen what it's like when he faces off against top level competition. As I said, his kickboxing is very good, man. His hands are always down, which is fine. I've seen him even get tired in fights, and I get that, if you're in the 3rd round, you're not going to be as spry as you were in the first, but I'm talking like visible signs of fatigue, mouth wide open, just his kicks not being as snappy as they were in the 1st round, things like that. And as I said, his boxing range for me is a little bit lacking, and I think that Bruno Silva, that's where he will do work. Like, he will fucking crack you in the boxing range, and I think that Bruno Silva will be able to pressure him and not allow him to just completely dictate the pace with those side kicks that he likes to throw with the snap. I just don't know that it's going to be enough. I think in the leagues, the promotions that he's been fighting in, it's obviously enough, right? But when you come into the UFC, I want to see better shit. Now, I have seen him defend some takedowns. I've seen him land good with the hands. Like, I'm not saying the guy can't fucking punch. Do you know what I mean? But I am saying that he's a little bit lacking in that area. And a lot of his opponents in these smaller promotions have been quite a bit smaller than him. Like, there's maybe a couple that are on par with his size, but some of them are like, visibly, like, there's a massive size difference here, and they just kind of get bullied around. I just don't know that he's going to be able to get Bruno Silva out of there in the 1st round, and I think that that's how I would see him winning this fight. And I think that as the fight goes on, I think it's going to favor Bruno Silva. Because look, man, whether or not Bruno Silva's got the best record in the UFC, that guy is clearly fucking battle tested, okay? He has fought tons of good guys. He's beaten good guys, okay? And he's not as old as people may think. I mean, he's definitely up there, but we're in middleweight, so it's not the worst, So I do think, man, I'm just going to go with Bruno Silva, and I'm telling you what, dude, the only reason I'm doing that is because I want to see what this kid can do, and I don't want to go and pick him based off of watching him beat up cans in smaller promotions. You can clearly see that he has skills, and I completely understand that. I'm not saying the dude sucks or he's like some bullshit hype train or whatever, dude. I'm just going to stick with who I know is battle tested, who I know has fought some of the best in the world. And, you know, if Bullet goes out there and does work and fucking finishes Bruno Silva, then I'll probably be inclined to pick him moving forward. But until then, I'm gonna just stick with the battle tested Bruno Silva. Guy's got a decent chin. You know, I know he got dropped by GM3, but he went 3 rounds with Alex Pereira and was the only guy, aside from Jan Blachowicz, who was up a weight class to go the distance with Pereira since he's made his way to the UFC. So, I'm going with Bruno Silva, boys. I don't know that he's going to finish him. I do believe that Bullet's got a good chin on him, because as I said, I've seen him get cracked with some big overhand rights, and he seemed fine. But Bruno Silva can crack, so I don't know how he gets it done, but I am going to go Bruno Silva, just until I get a good look at how this guy does against top-level competition in the UFC. Moving up the card, I told you, man, some of these, man, I didn't mean to take 5 minutes on that goddamn fight, but it is what it is. Victoria Dudakova versus Jinyu FREY. Oh, we can get through this one easy, dude. Jinyu FREY sucks, okay? She's almost fucking 40, and she's looked like shit the last, I don't know, 3-4 fights. Like, she's just, I'm not sure why she's still kicking around, but I'm going to go with Victoria Dudakova, pardon me. Too old. As I said, straight up, I'm just going with her. I'm going to go with her by rear naked choke. She's younger, hungrier, undefeated, and I think that she gets it done by submission. Now, moving up the card, to Nathaniel Wood versus Muhammad NAIMOV. Okay. Man, I was pretty high on Nathaniel Wood for quite a bit, and I'm still kind of high on him. I don't think that he's just fallen off completely, but his last performance was not all that, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was a bit of a controversial decision. I do think that Andre Fili thought he won that fight, and I think a lot of people thought he won that fight, but I could be mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Muhammad NAIMOV came into the UFC, had a tough debut opponent in Jamie Malarkey, and he finished him, which for me is what I love to see. This is what I'm talking about with Sharia Bullet, right? Like, I want to make sure that a guy's record is not just totally padded. And oftentimes you see these guys come off the Contender Series and you see like 7 finishes in a row, and then all of a sudden they can't get a finish to save their life in the UFC. So I like seeing that from NAIMOV, okay? I think I'm going to go with him with this one, unfortunately. Jamie Malarkey is not an easy guy to finish. The guy's only been finished a couple of times, 4 times, I think, in total. He's had a long career, crafty vet. As I said, tricky. He's got a good chin on him. We just watched him versus John McDessie go to war, and John McDessie can crack, okay? I think that there's going to be a noticeable size difference, which, I mean, is usually the case in a Nathaniel Wood fight, but I just think that Muhammad NAIMOV may be able to give him trouble in the grappling department if that is the case, and then also the dude can crack, as I said, and Wood has not gotten a finish in over 4 years, okay? And it came against a guy who hasn't been in the UFC since late 2020. He's had some tough fights since then, and he's even lost a couple of times also, so I think I see a TKO for Muhammad NAIMOV, unfortunately. I do like Nathaniel Wood, as I said, but moving up the card, Mike BREEDEN versus Anshul JUBLI, okay, Indian fighter. He might be one of the only Indian fighters on the entire roster. I am going to go with Anshul JUBLI. I guess Mike BREEDEN is a bit older. He has an Angela Hill type record. He's been KO'd 3 times, which are half of his losses, so he's usually getting KO'd, okay? JUBLI's obviously young, hungry, got a finish, first time in the UFC, which is, as I just said in the previous fight, I like to see that. Good mix, though, of decision subs and TKOs, showing us that he's well-versed in all areas. He's not going to gas out. He can go the 3 rounds, and I just don't know that the near 40-year-old Mike BREEDEN's going to get the job done. All right, moving up the card, too. Abu AZAITAR versus Cedric Dumas. Okay, when I saw this fight, I immediately went, I'm going with Abu AZAITAR, and then I changed my mind. I think that I'm kind of being a little too hard on Cedric Dumas. So, obviously, he came off the Contender Series, got a good finish there. Came into the UFC, ran into Josh Fremd, who we just saw against Roman Kopylov. Obviously, he did not win that fight. Tough as fucking nails, okay? Also, Josh Fremd was able to implement his wrestling style, his grappling, to beat Cedric Dumas, and it looked like Cedric Dumas had no fucking clue what was going on in that realm, and that was a problem for me, because I thought, well, you know, you can't not know how to do this shit in the UFC, and Josh Fremd, while he's very good, is not like a top level guy, do you know what I mean? So I had picked Cedric Dumas to win that fight based on his Contender Series performance, and then in the next fight against Cody Brundage, now to be fair to me, Cody Brundage might have the lowest fucking IQ in the entirety of the UFC, and I mean that generally, and fight IQ. Guy's not smart, okay? We've seen it multiple times. Dude's trying to take down Rodolfo Vieira as if that's gonna fucking help you, and he was hurting him on the feet to boot, which was just insane to me. But regardless, Cedric Dumas in that fight showed us massive improvements in his grappling defense, takedown defense, his ability to get back to his feet. I mean, he's a young guy, and he's young in his career, so it would, stand to reason that he's going to be making decent improvements as he goes on, which I like to see, obviously. Whereas Abu Azaitar is in his late 30s. He's 5 inches shorter than Cedric Dumas. I think he's going to have a lot of time, or a lot of problems, pardon me, with getting past that range of Cedric Dumas. And he got, even Abu Azaitar was finished his last time out, do you know what I mean? So I think that we're coming towards the end of his career. I would imagine Cedric Dumas has made even more improvements since his last time out, and he looked damn good in that fight. So I will be going with Cedric Dumas. I think that I potentially see a TKO here. I think that, as I said, the range is going to cause problems for Abu Azaitar. I don't think that he's going to be able to get Cedric Dumas down without getting, clipped with something on the way in. So Cedric Dumas by TKO. Moving up the card to Javid Basharat. Okay, love these guys. Versus Victor Henry. I'm going to go with Basharat. Okay. Both these brothers are very good, obviously. I do think that the other brother is the better one. I can't think Farid Basharat, maybe, off the top of my head. Anyways, I think that he's a bit better. He's actually gotten some finishes in the UFC, which Javid Basharat has not. But he was one of those guys, right, where you see that he's got all these finishes before entering the UFC. I think he had 11 finishes before entering the UFC, and he doesn't even have a huge record. And then he comes in here and he 3 decisions in a row. Now, the reason I'm picking him is because they've been fighting similar level competition, in my opinion, right? Like, Victor Henry, I mean, tough debut. We got Rafael Sunsao, but dude's old, right? He's at the end of his career. He lost that one. He barely skated by against Tony Gravely, split decision. And Raoni Barcelos, who he couldn't finish either, is quite old as well. Victor Henry's 36 years old, and at least 2 of the 3 opponents that he's fought are older than him. And he's in bantamweight, which is crazy because they age out faster. Do you know what I mean? So he hasn't really had to fight like tough, young, hungry dudes. And that's what Javid Basharat is. So I do think that I don't think Henry's going to be able to get this one done. He's looked very good, and he's impressed me since he came to the UFC, because I thought 35 years old coming into the UFC, like, this guy, I don't know why he maybe is a little bit too late, do you know what I mean? But he's been doing good, so it is what it is. But Basharat, on the other hand, right, no finishes yet, obviously. He's just impressed me a little bit more, though. And there's no split decisions on his record, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that necessarily means Victor Henry should have lost that fight or something, but I mean that when you give a judge a look that you could have potentially lost that fight, it's just not as impressive as when you're getting, 30-27 scorecards all the way or whatever. They aren't super, super close fights is what I mean, right? Like, he's doing enough clearly to get the decisions, which I appreciate. He had a bunch of finishes pre-UFC. As I said, he's younger by 8 years, and we are at bantamweight, so I do think that the age factor in the lower weight classes makes more of a difference than up at the top, right? And, I mean, the stats bear that out also. So I'm going to go with Javid Basharat by unanimous decision. I don't know that he'll be able to just roll over Henry. Like, I think there will be a few close rounds and shit like that, but I do think that he's going to be able to do enough to get the job done. Younger, hungrier, very, very good. Also, dude, he's got one of the best training partners to be training with. Like, him and his brother are both phenomenal. And, I mean, the gym that they come from has a bunch of killers also. So I would imagine we're going to see improvements. The guy's not even 30 yet. All right, moving up the card, too. Muhammad Yahya versus Trevor Peek, bro. I was looking on Tapology. Apparently, Muhammad Yahya doesn't have an age. It says non-applicable. So I don't know what the fuck that means, okay? But regardless, he's fighting a bad motherfucker in Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek may not be the most technical, may not be the most flashy. This dude can fight, okay? And he's only lost against Chepe Mariscal, who is a savage. Like, every time Chepe Mariscal fights, I'm like, guys, this guy's good. Do you know what I mean? He's got a bunch of wins over UFC level competition just pre-UFC. Like, his record is not filled with bums. His record is not padded. He's fought killers. And he is a killer. And so, I'm not going to hold it against Trevor Peek all that much. Also, he didn't get finished, so it's not the worst loss in the world. Whatever, dude. It is what it is, okay? I feel like He's unorthodox. He's fucking weird to deal with. He's tough as nails. He's got a chin. He's throwing hammer fists from like a standing position. The guy's crazy. And I just don't think... I'm just going to pick him until I see him like clearly be outmatched and outskilled by guys. He's good, man. He's unorthodox, as I said. Going to be tricky to deal with for Muhammad Yahya. I do believe this is one of Muhammad Yahya's first fights in the UFC. It might even be his debut. I'm not sure. But either way, I just don't think... I think Trevor Peek's not going to let him breathe. I think Trevor Peek's going to just, pressing forward, not giving him room, just, and he's going to fucking grit one out, maybe get a finish in there, but who knows. But I am going with Trevor Peek. The dude's a badass, man, and he's awesome. And I also want to hear him get some mic time. So, Trevor Peek over Muhammad Yahya. Moving up the card to Tim Elliott versus Muhammad Makhachev. This one should actually be really interesting. I think this will be a weird one. Okay, so Tim Elliott, the raised fist tattoo, whatever, dude. Either way, this is going to... He uses his takedowns, his grappling a lot to win fights lately, okay, because he's getting up there in age, and he is at a lower weight class, right? They're at the lowest weight class of all time. But like in his last fight against Altamirano, he used solely takedowns to win that fight, basically, and some control time. And he wasn't even really able to do a whole lot of damage off of the ground, okay? So it's not like he's taking guys down and then fucking them up. He's just kind of winning rounds based on his control time, based on not allowing his opponent to do anything, and then you just got to land a few shots and that's it. He hasn't gotten a finish in 6 years, okay? And he's lost to all of the, top... not totally top level. I mean, he has lost to guys in the top level, but also he's lost to some guys that, aren't in the top 5, aren't in the top 10. Obviously, he's older in his career, man. I'm not expecting him to be going out there and having the performance that he had against Mighty Mouse anymore. Do you know what I mean? Muhammad Makhachev, though, is very fucking good. His MO is grappling, is takedowns, and I don't know that Tim Elliott's going to be able to take him down and control him without finding himself in trouble, because Tim Elliott has been subbed a bunch of times. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It's somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 maybe. And I just think that Muhammad Makhachev, who is one of the younger guys who I'm talking about that had a good record, came into the UFC and has been able to get finishes, right? He only went to the decision once with Charles Johnson, and that was a weird one, okay? But he finished Filho after letting him fucking tear his knee to shreds, and also that win aged decently, because Filho went out there and had a great performance in his next fight, almost got finished, came back, and ended up locking up a submission. The dude's very good. I actually picked him to win as an underdog against Makhachev, and that almost came true, but Muhammad Makhachev says, I don't give a fuck, rip my knee to shreds, which was crazy, especially from a young guy, so I hope that there's no real permanent damage there, and that his knee's not just going to be fucked. But I just don't think that Tim Elliott's going to be able to implement the game that he usually wants to implement, because I think that Muhammad Makhachev is probably going to have the edge in the grappling department. And as I said, Tim's been subbed a handful of times. I do think that Muhammad Makhachev ends up getting a rear naked choke over Tim Elliott. It is what it is, man. It's unfortunate. This is what they do to the older men, right? They give them the fucking young, hungry up-and-comers, and, usually it doesn't go their way. So, Muhammad Makhachev by rear naked choke. Moving up the card. Said Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafurov. Okay, I'm going to go with Said Nurmagomedov, and I think he's going to whip out a fucking guillotine like he does sometimes, dude. He just pulls those out of his ass like nobody's fucking business. He's very good on the feet also. He's one of my favorite Dagestani guys to watch because his striking is so good. But he can be beaten there too, right? Like last time out he lost to Martinez, but we just saw Martinez fucking destroy Adrian Yanez's legs and get the finish. And he's also gotten another leg kick TKO finish before. So considering Said Nurmagomedov went all 3 rounds unanimous decision against him, he lost, but still didn't get finished. It's aging pretty well. Jonathan Martinez is a fucking savage, and that dude can kick. He's got shins of steel. So not the worst loss in the world either way. Said Nurmagomedov's nasty. Muin Gafurov has showed me a bit of recklessness and shit like that, so I think that if things do start to go south, I could see him leaving his neck open. You know what I mean? Just like Said. Fucking hell, dude. How do you say his name? You could, whatever. Either way, dude, he's not in the UFC anymore. But he was very good, unfortunately. So, Said Nurmagomedov by guillotine. I think that he does work on the feet. Good kicks at range, punches, shit like that. I think that he's doing good at range, and I think that Muin Gafurov shoots a sloppy, panic-ish takedown. I think Said Nurmagomedov wraps up a guillotine, and fucking strangles him, dude. Moving up the card, Ikram ALISKEROV versus Warley Alves. Okay, dude, I don't know if the UFC's website is bugging or what, but I'll tell you what, dude. They got Warley Alves as a favorite on there. I didn't go and check another source, so maybe they just have the numbers flipped, because that does happen sometimes on the UFC's website. But I'll tell you what, dude. If they aren't, and if Ikram ALISKEROV is an underdog, I might bet this shit, dude. I might bet this shit. And I don't say that very often, because I can't understand why the fuck Warley Alves would be a favorite here, okay? Alves is 2-4 in his last 6. He's been finished 3 out of those 4 losses. James Krause, Randy Brown, and Jeremiah Wells. And these guys are good, but they're not like top level guys, okay? So I don't know that. It's not a good look. So I'm having a hard time believing that the UFC's website isn't fucking bugging, and that they actually did just flip the numbers. But either way, I'm going Ikram ALISKEROV all day, dude. His only losses to Khamzat Chimaev, okay? He got a spectacular finish in his UFC debut. No-brainer. Warley Alves, older in his career, as I said, has not had the most success as of, late and even past late. So Ikram ALISKEROV for me, and I do believe that he's able to get a finish, because Warley Alves has showed us that he's able to be finished. James Krause subbed him. I think Randy Brown TKO'd him, and I think Jeremiah Wells TKO'd him as well. I could be incorrect on those, but either way. Moving up the card, dude. We're almost there. Magomed ANKALAEV versus Johnny Walker, dude. Holy fuck. These last 3 fights, man, I'm like almost undecided as I'm filming this video, okay? I might go Johnny Walker, and I'm going to have to explain myself, obviously, but Magomed ANKALAEV showed us in his last fight, which was a year ago, pretty much, right? December of 2022 against Jan Blachowicz, fought to a draw, the most perfectly scored draw in all of fucking UFC history, okay? Showed us that he's got a pretty glaring weakness, in my opinion, and that is leg kicks. And in his fight against Anthony Smith, who has definitely taken a downturn, and I'm talking about Magomed here because they both fought Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith had a decent amount of success in the opening round before injuring his foot or leg or whatever it was in the second round. I do believe he broke his leg. And a lot of that success was actually coming with leg kicks, right? Anthony Smith was actually throwing leg kicks on Magomed. And Johnny Walker showed us his last time out against Anthony Smith again, that he has, in my opinion, made massive improvements in a couple of areas. So he doesn't just try to go for flashy, crazy KOs anymore, right? Which leads him to get clipped sometimes, because he'll jump in, like a lot of the Brazilians do, honestly. All offense, no defense. I think that his time with Kavanaugh has been pretty good for him. He doesn't do that as much. He's a lot more patient. He picks his shots better. And he's implemented parts and attacks into his game that are like beneficial over the long run, right? Like as John Anik always says, they pay dividends. Fucking like leg kicks and shit like that, right? Anthony Smith, his legs were butchered. He could barely fucking walk around. Johnny Walker did a phenomenal job at attacking those legs. And Magomed ANKALAEV, as I just said, guys showed us that he can be leg kicked, and he doesn't really have that great of leg kick defense. Now, maybe he's been working on that, to be fair, right? It's been a year since we've seen him. Just thinking about, Jan Blachowicz was fucking up both his legs, right? So Johnny Walker can go shin to shin and not have to be overly concerned about checks. And he could go to the outside leg if he wants to switch stances and start chopping at the calf. Johnny Walker also, right? He's on a tear, okay? And he's not fighting the, like, top guys in the world yet. I mean, he's fighting the, like, top 10 and shit like that, but you know what I mean. Not the guys that we consider, like, championship level. 3 straight. Showed improvements in grappling defense against Paul Craig, okay? Couldn't be taken down and TKO'd him, or KO'd him from a literal takedown defense. Like, he stuffed the takedown. Paul Craig was on a single leg, and he hammer-fisted him until he was essentially knocked out. He showed us patience in shot selection against Anthony Smith. He's not going to rush forward to it, try and get the finish and risk getting hurt. He will just pick you apart, which I like to see, especially from a big, giant guy like Johnny Walker, who obviously has power in his shots, dude. The guy's a fucking menace, okay? And he showed us offensive grappling against Ion Cutelaba. So he's literally making improvements in all areas of MMA. He's much younger in his career than Magomed Ankalaev is, right? Like, he had a bit of a rocky start. He came in here, looked phenomenal, got a bunch of crazy finishes, but then he was on the other end of some of those finishes, right? Like the one against Jamal Hill and shit like that. I don't think that Magomed has good striking, and I'm not saying this to be shitty or be a fucking hater, bro. He's got good striking, obviously. I just don't know that it's going to work against a, like, 6'5" monster like Johnny Walker. Do you know what I mean? Ion Cutelaba moves a lot more, reacts to feints a lot more. Magomed was landing head kicks and crazy shit on him. We saw that Jan Blachowicz was able to outstrike Magomed in the first 3 rounds, which, I mean, Jan Blachowicz is one of the best strikers in the UFC still, but man, inactivity, right? Been a whole year. The last time out was a draw against Jan Blachowicz that he had to implement grappling in, and in my opinion, Johnny Walker's going to have better takedown defense than Jan Blachowicz will, and he's going to be harder to take down in general because he's a fucking giant, okay? And as I said, Johnny Walker's been improving in all aspects of MMA, and he's literally proved that. Like, proof of concept, dude. A sub, defending subs and getting a KO, and then also not a finish, showed us that he can go 3 rounds. Beautiful shot selection against Anthony Smith. So, fuck it, dude. I'm going Johnny Walker. And I'll tell you what. I checked a few websites. On a few of these websites, Johnny Walker is a huge underdog. Like, they have Magomed as like a minus 350 or some shit. So, it's an underdog pick also. But yeah, man. Moving up the card. Johnny Walker by TKO, man. How about that? I think Johnny Walker is going to chew Magomed Ankalaev's legs apart. I think Magomed's going to try and strike with him for a bit. And then I think he's going to try some takedowns. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does get him down. But I don't think he's going to be able to finish him off of that. And I think that eventually Magomed's legs and shit get so fucked up that he maybe panic shoots or even dips or does something. I could see Johnny Walker landing like a big knee here, getting an upset. He's looked very good as of late. This may be a fucking crazy pick, but it is what it is. We're having some fun, all right? Moving up the card. Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev. Jesus Christ, dude. This is going to be my longest pick video in a while. This is one of the best cards in a long time. I can't fucking wait for this, and I hope y'all join me for the live companion. But either way, Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. I have to go Khamzat Chimaev here just because of the stage that Usman's at in his career. Now, I want to say, like, huge fucking respect to Kamaru Usman for taking this fight. Khamzat Chimaev is a guy that I'm sure a lot of guys don't necessarily want to fight. Not only that, he took it on 10 days notice. Not only that, he's going up a weight class. And look, man, big risk, big reward. Because if he can get it done, he gets a champion title, or he gets a title opportunity against a guy that he beat at 170 in Sean Strickland. So, credit to him. All the credit to him. Khamzat Chimaev, though, dude, young, hungry, ultra aggressive. It's going to be very interesting because really the only guy who didn't allow Usman to dictate where the fight took place, didn't allow him to constantly pressure him forward, was Colby Covington. And Colby Covington does not hit as hard as Khamzat Chimaev. His striking might not even be as clean. Colby's striking's a little underrated, I think, but the reason it is because there's not a whole lot of pop on his shots, but he's pretty accurate with the body kick and shit like that. Sorry about that. Khamzat Chimaev hits hard, obviously, we've seen him, okay? He can get a little sloppy at times, but that's just what we've seen. He's taken a good chunk of time off, too, and he's young, so I would imagine he's been making improvements. There's some, footage out there of him striking in the gym and stuff like that, and he looks good, dude. He also looks very big and strong, and he's kind of had the opportunity to bulk up and to actually, like, get to the point where he feels comfortable fighting against giant fucking middleweights, right? Whereas Kamaru Usman's kind of just probably going to be cutting less weight. He might be a little bulkier because he hasn't fought in a while, but it's not like he's been, over the last year, putting on muscle with the intention of moving up. So I think that, I think we'll see some big improvements out of Khamzat Chimaev in the striking department. It's going to be very, very, very interesting to see if Kamaru Usman's takedown defense can hold up right there. Leon Edwards is the only guy to officially get him down under MMA rules. Obviously, Colby got him down, but that was not, no control off of it, no nothing. Didn't secure the position, so it doesn't count as a takedown. And Usman popped right back up anyways. Leon Edwards, though, that might be one of the reasons why I'm confident that Khamzat Chimaev gets it done, because if it does hit the mat, dude, Kamaru Usman's jiu-jitsu is lacking. It just is. Now, he was able to defend the choke against Leon Edwards, but he wasn't able to improve position at all. Leon Edwards took him down immediately in the mount and then immediately on the back, and he spent the rest of the round there trying to defend a choke. Kamaru Usman, if Usman had jiu-jitsu, he would have been fucking like unstoppable. You know, it's crazy. Now, Usman's jab I could potentially see causing problems for Khamzat Chimaev, if I'm being honest. Because Usman's a lot longer. His jab, while his striking is not like the most sophisticated or anything like that, his jab is very educated, and it's, you know, fundamentals, man. And it's fucking straight as an arrow. Like, he's not throwing it from down low at a weird angle. He's not coming in from the side at all. He's not coming up. It's fucking perfectly straight and back to his face. So, and he's long, as I said. I think I could potentially see that. Now, I don't know who's got a reach advantage. I should have checked that. My apologies. Khamzat's a couple inches taller, but Usman's got unbelievably fucking long arms, dude. Like, he's, you know, either way. I just can't see a world where Usman's able to take him down and beat the fuck out of him like he does so many people. Because I think Khamzat Chimaev, in terms of, like, submission grappling, not wrestling, is better than Usman, and I don't think that that's controversial to say. And I think that he might even be better in wrestling. I'm not even saying that he's not. We're gonna find out, right? I can't fucking wait for this fight, and we are gonna find out who's better at takedowns and shit like that. But I think that when it comes to submission wrestling, we've seen Khamzat Chimaev get subs, dude. Right? He locked up a Darce on fucking what's his face. He had a rear naked choke against somebody before that. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but he knows how to move on the ground, whereas Usman kind of is just like top pressure heavy, dude. So I just think Khamzat has more ways to win. I think that this is going to be in his favor. He's been preparing, and I know that Usman's probably been in the gym too, but Khamzat knew he was fighting on this date. He's been bulking up with the intention of going up. He's a fucking savage, ultra aggressive, the most aggressive person Kamaru Usman has fought by a long shot. Like, it's not even fucking close. I don't imagine he's going to let Usman push him back. They're going to meet in the middle, kind of like Usman and Colby did. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow Usman might end up being on the back foot. Who knows? He's got more ways to win, man. He's young. He's fucking hungry. He's a savage, ultra aggressive, good everywhere. In the areas that he wasn't as good at, I would imagine he's made improvements. Like, as I said, in the Gilbert Burns fight, his striking was a little sloppy. He got hit with some big shots. Like, he got hit with fucking, 3 or 4 just huge winging overhand rights in a row from Gilbert Burns. They were some of the most telegraphed punches I've ever fucking seen. But either way, dude, Khamzat Chimaev, I'm not even going to give a sub. I think he subs him eventually. I think he subs him. I could see Usman taking a bad shot. I could see Chimaev locking up a Darce from there. I could see him taking Usman down. You know, I don't think he's going to KO him. All things considered, Usman's got a pretty good fucking chin, right? Only been put down, really put down from that head kick, so either way. Sorry, guys, I'm still fucking sick, but either way. Moving up the card, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Fucking hell, dude. I'm undecided on this one, too. Because I almost want to pick with the fucking heart, just for fun. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to use my brain for this one. I don't. But I also think that if I pick Volk, you're all going to get fucking mad at me. Because then you're going to say, I cursed him, motherfucker, which is just wild. Either way, dude. I like Volkanovski's mentality going into this fight. Okay, first of all, burn the fucking boats. Savage. Also, how he's saying, somebody asked him about the cardio. He says, I don't want to test the cardio. I want to fucking get him out of there early. Volk rarely says shit like that. Do you know what I mean? So he's fucking fired up. He's ready to go. He has given me no reason to fucking doubt him ever. Okay? And I know that a lot of you are upset about the timing of this fight, how it came about, the fact that they're in Abu Dhabi, the fact that Islam Makhachev is going to have everything, you know, to his advantage, essentially, right? Volk's got to travel, make weight. He wasn't preparing for this fight, but I think that he was, man. I think that he was. And I think that some of the shit we saw against Yair Rodriguez could potentially help him in this fight. And obviously, I'm not saying Yair Rodriguez is you know, comparable to Islam Makhachev in any which way, shape, or form. Not their style, not their size, not their nothing. Volk showed us incredible offensive wrestling and grappling, and he showed us that multiple times. There's not many men that want to get on top, dude. There's not many men that want to get on top of Ortega and smash him out from guard. There's just not, dude, because he's worried about subs. Volk's not worried about fucking subs, bro. Also, because he doesn't have a neck, okay? Also, the takedown offense against Yair Rodriguez. I'm not saying Islam's going to go down like that as easily as he was able to get Yair down. But it wasn't even that, like, he didn't give Yair Rodriguez a chance to defend those takedowns because the timing on it was so good. He was throwing shots. Yair's fucking, you know, and then he ducks under. So the timing on it's phenomenal. That was something that, like, George St. Pierre may not have been the best wrestler in the welterweight division, but his timing on double legs, his timing on shit like this was fucking phenomenal. Volk's got good timing. Volk's good everywhere. Something else that I think could potentially work against Volkanovski. Islam Makhachev backs up oftentimes. Southpaw stance, obviously, right? He backs up to his left. So, Volk's right. And he's very good defensively with the lead hand. And he's got a very good counter right hook. That works if Volk's an orthodox. Or that would work. I think it'll work less if Volk is in southpaw. And I'm not saying I want him to be southpaw the whole time. But against Yair Rodriguez, he did that step through, switch stance, right hand over the top. I just hit my fucking mic. Okay? Right hand over the top and cracked fucking Yair Rodriguez good. Okay? And hurt him. And I think that was what led to the finishing sequence eventually. I think that he could implement those sort of attacks. I think that we will see him try that switch stance, right hand over the top, because then it becomes your check right hook and your southpaw to southpaw, but you weren't. So the range gets thrown off for Islam. He's gonna back up thinking he's safe from the orthodox Volk, and if Volk steps through and lands, and Volkanovski, fucking Dominic Cruz, the fucking idiot, tries to say, oh, he's got T-Rex arms. He's got one of the longer reaches in the featherweight division. He's fucking 5'6", dude. The guy's got a huge ape index. So he's gonna be able to touch Islam in places that Islam can touch him also. So it's not like he's not like, you know, severely out of range all the time. And I think that I could see that shot that he landed on Yair Rodriguez actually work on Islam Makhachev. And I think that I could be just reaching, but I think that some of the shit we saw in the Yair Rodriguez fight was Volk preparing for Islam shit. Like, I know he prepared for Yair. I know that he brought guys in, Taekwondo dudes and shit like that. But the offensive grappling, all of that shit, man. Think about this, dude. Islam Makhachev had Volk down for, like, probably, 9 minutes or something out of that fight. Control time. He did no damage. Like, none whatsoever. Off of the ground. When Volkanovski got on top of him, Volk did damage. He was smashing him. And Islam looked terrified and wanted to get the fuck out of there. I could see Volkanovski implementing like him offensively grappling, going for a takedown. Because we saw against Charles, Islam's not going to reverse it and, like, hit some crazy throw. He defends it, right? And Charles Oliveira shot for a takedown, and this actually helped Charles be able to disengage on his terms when they were close. They clinched up after overextending on a shot, and then he fucking tried to shoot a takedown immediately instead of letting Islam shoot a takedown. And then he wasn't able to take him down because he had to defend that, and then Oliveira was able to get him up against the cage and disengage. And I think that could potentially work for Alexander Volkanovski. And Volkanovski, I would imagine, is a bit stronger than Charles Oliveira. Obviously smaller, but I think that he's got the strength to handle a guy like Islam Makhachev. And he kind of showed us that because Islam was unable to do anything off of takedowns. He had to use all of his energy to hold on to him, basically. In the first round, this was the case. Maybe landed a few little pop shots, maybe threatened an arm a couple times, or a choke, pardon me. And then in that round, round 4, when he took the back, he couldn't do a fucking thing, dude. He couldn't do a fucking thing to Volkanovski. So I'm just talking myself into picking Volkanovski here. And I think that he's actually going to get the job done. I think he's going to go out there and do the exact fucking thing that he says he's going to do. And get the finish early on. I don't think he's going to let it go to the later rounds. I think he's going to come at Islam. I think he's going to, you know, land some big shit. I think that step through right hand, switch stance, I think that'll work against Islam Makhachev. Just based on the way that he backs up. He doesn't back super far out of range, but he always angles off. And I could see that working for Volkanovski. So fuck it, dude. I'm going Alexander Volkanovski because I'm not using my brain and I want him to win. And it was such a good fight the last time. So fucking close. And I just think that Islam, he's been preparing for Charles Oliveira. And, you know, he was probably ultra confident. And he's still confident in his own abilities, obviously. But he was even more confident knowing I'm going in there against a guy that could barely do fuck all to me. And I finished him in the second round. Now he's going in there to fight a guy who almost beat him. And, you know, maybe you could argue that he did. And smashed him. Like, you know, at the end of that fight, one guy was much more damaged than the other, and it wasn't Alexander Volkanovski. So I see him doing to Islam what Islam does to others. I think Volk's gonna shoot takedowns. I think Volk's gonna do what I said, the step in right hand southpaw stance, to fuck with Islam's range a little bit and potentially touch that chin, hurt him, and fuck it, dude. Don't hate me for picking Volk. I'm not cursed, alright? So, anyways, dude, that's the end of this picks video. Like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.